Hello friend, and welcome back. It's great to see you. Today, I'd like to talk about this game, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, also known as the Philosopher's Stone outside the United States. This game came out in November of 2001. Pretty crazy how many years it's been. 24 now since what went from a known children's book in part of the world became a worldwide sensation. And this was the progenitor. Well, maybe not the game, but we'll talk a bit about the game, of course, which was developed by Argonaut Games. So Argonaut, pretty cool developer. They're a British studio known for pioneering 3D graphics in gaming. They previously worked on the Croc series, and they were instrumental in developing the Super FX chip for the SNES, which was a big hardware piece used for games such as Star Fox, to my understanding. And this was published by Electronic Arts, EA Games, Challenge Everything as it used to be, in collaboration with Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. So Harry Potter games kind of always fell into this niche of licensed titles that I actually thought were pretty good. I had a lot of fun playing the Harry Potter games growing up, and I just felt like revisiting a little bit of that magic, so to speak, and so decided to pop this in and give it a spin. So not only that, but there were also a lot of interesting folks involved in the production of this game. One of the persons I wanted to call out was Jeremy Soule. He is the composer for this title and was already gaining a lot of recognition for his orchestral work on games such as Total Annihilation. He'd later go on to score Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, which, and Skyrim, of course, which, if you know anything about video game OSTs, you know, that's probably on your radar already. So that's pretty cool, and you can really hear that in the soundtrack for this game. Another person was involved, Simon Phipps. He was one of the writers, and he had worked on Shadow Man and Rick Dangerous. So his writing style really brought this kind of quirky British vibe to the game's tone, and so that made it enjoyable as well, just from that sense. The game, funny enough, was built on the same engine that Croc was, which explains some of the more floaty platforming mechanics, and also the interesting auto jump mechanic, which for me was kind of its time in 2001. I mean, Zelda is one of the titles that I think of right off the bat when that comes to my mind. And this was also developed concurrently with all the other versions. So there was a PC version, a GameCube version, and a GBA version. And each was very different in its gameplay style and systems. So Argonaut Games was really hustling to make Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone a licensed title kind of worth picking up on any platform. And so I thought that was interesting. But this particular version, the PlayStation 1 version, sold over 8 million copies. So this was one of the best-selling games on the PlayStation, if you can imagine. But not only does it live on as a big seller in the PlayStation 1 era, it lives on in the hearts and minds of a lot of people through its hilarious, you know, low polygon character models. You know, a lot of people know the Hagrid meme, for example, and it comes from this game. And so people continue to think about this game, remember this game, and it was also a big inspiration for me wanting to, once again, play this game too. So before we talk too much about my experience playing the game, I just wanted to show off the game, of course. That's the most exciting part. So we got the fantastic PlayStation 1 dual case, and this is a pretty nice copy overall of the game. So it says on the back, Hogwarts term begins. Be Harry Potter in a magical adventure filled with wizardry, fun, and danger. Let's see some of the things it calls out. Cast spells. Okay, yeah, we're going to do that. Attend lessons. Okay. Sounded like the game Bully, almost. Win house points for Gryffindor. Trademarked. I find that funny. Just right on there. Lead Gryffindor to victory in Quidditch. Trademarked. That's funny. Collect chocolate frogs. Birdie bots every flavored beans and famous wizard cards. And interact with 20 unforgettable characters from J.K. Rowling's world. All right. Very cool. Yeah, there's the back once again. And if we pop open the disc here, the disc flies out of the case. That's pretty good. Okay, hold up. Let me get this here. I wonder if it just doesn't really buckle in. You know, some cases they just kind of do that. So actually, I quite like the styling on the inside. Starry sky over Hogwarts, I believe, and then there's Harry riding his broomstick again. trying to catch the snitch. I don't know what he's doing out so late trying to catch the snitch. This must have been a long-running Quidditch game if I had to think about it. And if we take out the manual here, nothing too crazy going on in the manual. We do have just a little bit about starting the game and how the controls work, how Quidditch works, and unfortunately it's in black and white, but this is pretty sick. I even still have the registration card stapled into this manual. So usually when you see that, it means that this has gone completely untouched in one way or another. So anyway, yeah, it's your typical fodder, I would say, for a manual. Let me just get the game all put back together here, and then let's talk about the game a bit. So from the gameplay lens, Harry Potter is pretty interesting, and let's dive into the mechanics first off. So spellcasting, of course, is going to be pretty essential to a Harry Potter experience. So there's a lot of spells like Flipendo, which Harry will constantly say over and over and over again. There's also Incendio, Wingardium Leviosa, and you learn all these kind of through some Simon Says style button sequences that you'll do in your classes throughout the game. And that's about it. As long as you can just press the buttons in the right order, boom, you know a spell now all of a sudden. So, and spells are kind of this or that, right? Combat is pretty minimal overall in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The game mostly focuses on kind of doing puzzle solving, mini games, some platforming and exploration. And so this is not a big aspect of the game. Regardless, there's a core one button press that's situational for kind of shooting out spells. So when you learn a spell, it doesn't learn like you did too much that was significant, I would say. So that's mechanically how the game plays. Pretty straightforward. From a structural sense, the game gets divided into, you go to these lessons, and then you'll have some challenges kind of built around using a new spell or a new item you might have got through that lesson. Or some of them are just messed up, where like you go to Snape's potions class and then you get whisked away to some like underground dungeon in Hogwarts, and apparently Snape's just like totally cool with this. I don't know exactly like what his plan was for saving students if they were in trouble, right? But that's about it. And then there's some story segments that get kind of pieced in here and there, loosely following the book's plot. But there's also a bunch of mini games. I think this is a mini game central experience if you're looking for one. So there's things like Quidditch. There's these crazy minecart rides. There's, you're chasing magical creatures, some of which are brutally difficult to deal with, such as catching the peacock and trying to get its feathers and doing these coin collections. And I have to say that these aspects of the game really dragged on me quite a bit. I'm playing this on my PlayStation 1. I have to do it as legitimately as possible. There's no such thing as a save state. And these minecarts, dude, the minecart segments require absolute perfection of you in order to pass them. And there's 3 back to back to back. And they're toward the end of the game, and they are just completely draining on your soul when you go through them. And so, this is not for the faint of heart. This is the Souls-like of Harry Potter's games, I gotta say. So if you wanted that experience, then definitely look to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on PS1. I do not remember this being as crazy as it was when I played it on the PC years ago with my buddy Joe. So just something to keep in mind, for sure. So that's kind of the structure of the game. There's also very minimal UI interaction, which I always appreciate out of a game, so that was pretty nice. You just get a simple HUD. It has a little lightning bolt, which has your health, and that's about it. Outside of that, you'll see like little rings where there are items that you can shoot magic, but it's context sensitive again, so it's situational and doesn't always show up, but it kind of just guides you a little bit on doing something when you have to do it. So I did appreciate that. Otherwise, Hogwarts is pretty cool. It's kind of semi-open world, lots of secret passages, there's collectibles, and there's a bunch of Birdie Bot's beans to collect, and if you do collect all of a certain color, then Fred or George will give you a password to go and jump inside one of these secret portraits that has an item for you, such as I got a broom for Quidditch that went faster. But the funny thing is that it happens in a point in the game where you've like already completed the core story training plus the Quidditch matches that go throughout the year. So I just thought that was kind of funny. I guess if you're just gonna go wandering around and flying your broomstick playing Quidditch, then maybe you'd get something out of it. But for me, I of course didn't too much since I was just kind of focusing on getting through the story. Another thing about exploration and the game's mechanics is that there's no real manual jump button, right? Like Harry, he auto jumps when you get near ledges, which can feel kind of clunky, I think, by today's standards for a lot of people. But as I might have referenced earlier, Legend of Zelda, especially Ocarina of Time, this is like a core childhood experience. So for me, it was kind of just going back to the roots of what I was most familiar with at the time when I was kind of early on starting to play video games. So it didn't really feel too bad for me, but it's something that you'd want to think about if you're going to play the game and maybe platforming is really not up your alley and gives you struggles, then just something to look out for. So that's kind of core gameplay stuff. Overall, the gameplay was pretty simple. It's not a super long game. There are some very, very out-of-pocket sections where it really challenges you, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. It's challenging in like a mechanically hard way and super unfair, but I have respect for that, especially for children who might have beaten this game as kids, because it would have taken some serious patience and skill to pull it off, and so I very much applaud them. But overall, just kind of chilling and vibing through Harry Potter's world in this low polygon, kind of goofy looking aesthetic, and so I can appreciate that, and I had some fun playing the game, that's for sure. The next thing I'd like to dive into, as always, is the story of the game, and what more is there to say? I mean, it's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's a simple retelling of the book. It takes some creative liberties, so one of my favorites is Norbert shows up super early into the game, and Hagrid hatches Norbert and is taking care of him, and Norbert gets sick. He gets sick. So this prompts Hagrid dragging Harry from school to go to Diagon Alley, and he tells Harry, hey, go to the bank and just get a bunch of money out of the bank for you, which puts you on these mine carts and these crazy coin collecting mini games, which are absolutely destructive to my psyche. But putting that aside, Hagrid just goes like, all right, I'm gonna go pound a few butterbeers and you just meet up with me once you have the cash, bruh. And that's all that Hagrid does, and he just bounces out of there and leaves Harry to just wander around this 11-year-old kid in Diagon Alley by himself to go to the bank, and I don't know, it just seems kind of exploitative the way that the game pointed it out. But I did think that was pretty funny.
Go to Gringotts to get some Knuts, Sickles and Galleons. Grip Hook'll see you right. I'm off to the Leaky Cauldron for a few butterbeers if you need me. I'll meet you when you're all done.
So there are some moments that do change a little bit throughout the course of the game, but nothing too serious, and I think you're going to get kind of the beat-by-beat main plot of Harry Potter by playing the title, if you truly need that. There are side characters, of course, that kind of get interlaced throughout here, like Fred and George I was mentioning. They have some humorous interactions with you, especially around their bean-based economy. Like, beans are rolling and ruling the world for 11-year-olds at Hogwarts, and so that becomes a core aspect of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And also, it's kind of funny the way that the story interacts with the writing that they've put here. The voice acting is often kind of charmingly like clunky and awkward, and I do very much appreciate that about this game. It's just kind of funky and weird to play. So there's also some great lines, like I mentioned, Flipendo, and then there's an incredible moment where in the movie and in the book, Draco was kind of harassing Neville Longbottom and has taken his, I think, Toad, if I remember correctly. And in the game, they do this exact same sequence, except in it, Draco says, and I'll quote, "Go home to your mother, Potter. Oh, sorry, you don't have one."
Go home to your mother, Potter. Oh, sorry, you don't have one, do you?
And it's actually pretty funny in Spanish, especially, just because of the way that Draco kind of says it. It's just totally brutal. But overall, just, it's a Harry Potter game, it's a Harry Potter story, and it was fun. But I think what makes this so easy to return to is just how kind of awkward and goofy it can be in its moments. From its funny character polygons to the way it's written. It's just kind of a funky mess, and I did really like that about this title on PlayStation 1.
Excellent.
Okay, now I was surprised to say that I took away a lot from the discussion around sound for this game. The sound design, the voice acting, the effects, the OST. And so let's talk about voice acting first. So this game is fully voice cast, which is pretty cool. And the main person voicing both Harry and Draco, his name was, or is, Joe Sourbutt. And I love his name, Joe. You got an epic name, dude. And he's done some British television and such. But Mr. Sourbutt really does bring a pretty good, performance here for what he was doing. I have to imagine that Mr. Sourbutt was likely a younger man or child when he voiced these lines, and they're delivered about as good as you can with that little awkward charm that I was mentioning. So shout out to that. The other characters do equally well. Hagrid is hilarious in this game. And Dumbledore shows up just for a couple lines, but he totally just goes ham. I mean, he sounds like Dumbledore, I guess. And then Ron and Hermione, they play core parts of the game from a storytelling perspective. So there's a lot of voice lines for them. And Ron especially is quite funny. He has this very young, high-pitched voice, but he's often saying some pretty brutal things, or some things that are like, yeah, no duh, Ron, like, I know what we gotta do. You don't have to throw on so much exposition for me. I know I'm playing a game made for kids, but that's still something that came to mind. And from a sound effects lens, we get something similar. So the spell sounds, there's a lot of creature noises. They work. They're kind of serviceable at that, but often pretty repetitive, because you're going to hear Flipendo, you're going to hear owls hooting, you're going to hear the same kind of song playing over and over again when you're flying your broom. And it's just something that's going to happen because of course, the limitations of the PlayStation 1. But I'm sure they could have added at least 1 or 2 extra sound effects, or maybe change the way that Harry said Flipendo every time. He says it the exact same way. And that's something that could have been looked at, I think, a little more. And the quality of the sound is interesting. I mean, I personally played this on a PlayStation 3 backwards compatible. And on the PlayStation 3 backwards compatible, at least for me, there were frequent audio cutouts, jumbled music. Oftentimes I would be running in an area in Hogwarts and the Hogwarts music is playing, and then all of a sudden the music would just shut off. It would just glitch out and break. So I thought that was pretty funny. But overall, the music, as I returned to and gave a closer listen to, because I really love Jeremy's soul and a lot of what his work stands for, the score is very orchestral and atmospheric, and does a really good job of mimicking what was able to be done with the actual score from the films. But yeah, I mean, overall, for what they were doing for this game, it's just a licensed title. Throw an army of people at it for a month, and then boom, you got it, push it out. Argonauts Games did a pretty good job of putting this together, and the music was ambitious, and it was a pretty good score that does well to show the early signs of what Jeremy would do with Morrowind and Skyrim's soundtracks, for instance. But also in kind of mimicking that atmosphere, that character from the movie. So I was really impressed overall with the music, and with enjoying the awkward voice acting and some of the funky sound effects. So, last thing that's always important for me to mention is graphics and the game performance. So by the standards of the day, in 2001, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was already looking pretty dated. I mean, even then, especially compared to the PlayStation 2 and GameCube versions, the low polygon style, the performance of the game, it was just probably starting to feel quite old, especially if you put it up against the PlayStation 2, like the next gen iterations of this title. That was kind of difficult, and that's okay from the lens of, low polygon style game development and art design. It's really coming back in this space. I mean, I've seen some very cool games made with PlayStation 1 graphics hitting the Steam library and the shelves in 2020s that look fantastic and play fantastic and are very cool. So super legendary. And also this game achieved its meme status, through Hagrid's face. And these environments that they used are still very colorful and fun to look at. The lighting might be a little flat, it might lack a little detail, but I can see exactly what they wanted to do with it, and I think for what they were able to accomplish on the PlayStation 1, it was pretty solid. And putting the music aside, the game does run quite smoothly on the PlayStation 1. There are some occasional frame drops during some of the more busy moments of the game, and from a backwards compatibility lens, putting aside some of those audio glitches, I didn't really see anything graphical performance-wise that was challenging. The load times were super reasonable. There are tons of save points. This is a manual save game, so just keep that in mind, but tons of save points for you to go and utilize. There's literally a moment when you're in the dungeons where you go to a save point, you open a door and you walk down, and there's another save point. So while the game does present some challenges, you really do get a lot of opportunities to come back and face those challenges head on once again. So overall, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the gameplay was pretty fun. It was super nostalgic, simple in its own way. Just go around casting Flipendo everywhere you go. The story is beat for beat, just about what you would expect, with some very funny creative liberties taken by the team, with a great soundtrack and meme status graphics. So what more could you want out of a game? I mean, you basically have the whole package here. So I did have fun with it. It was fun to revisit, and you know, I grew up enjoying Harry Potter quite a bit. The movies were kind of my age, quite literally. I was about Harry's age when the first movie came out, and continued to grow up with them as they released. So yeah, had a lot of fun with it. I'm curious if you've played Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on PlayStation 1. Would love to know what you think about the game. Please share your comments below, and otherwise, if you like the video, please like the video and subscribe. Would love to have you join this little community of mine and talk about games and talk about gaming news. So until next time, just want to say I hope you be well, be healthy, and look forward to seeing you again. All right, see you guys.